Okay. So get it going. So as we know, and those of y'all have been a part of our community and practice meetings before, we have two major objectives that we've been working on with as the collaborative. And as a part of objective one, which is to increase access to basic needs supports for students, we specifically focused on the sub task or the sub objective of implementing basic needs screening and benefits eligibility screening for students. As you know, um, being able to use a comprehensive screening process and reviewing state public benefit plans to enhance flexibility for our students is a big part of our goals and objectives. And so being able to just focus on this area for the summer was our mission. And we got pretty far in there, hoping that we'll be able to gain some more ground with the comprehensive screening ideas. Just to review some stats and information, college students are struggling. We know that nearly 3 in 5 college students experience basic needs insecurity when there was a national survey done back in 2020. We received data that reviewed food insecurity, housing insecurity, as well as homelessness. We are aware after receiving the data that basic needs insecurity does affect all students, but some students experience basic needs insecurity in different ways. Some students do not have access to the same resources as others do, depending on where they live, where their schools are located, because there are different programs in the community as well as different programs that are on our campuses. What we do know is 2 in 5 students attending a college or university in Kentucky received a Pell Grant. And we know that if these individuals are connected with supports, whether it is whether they are getting it from a connector or whether they're getting it from the community and they get support services, they are more likely to be retained. They are more likely to be retained. So that is what we want to see. Looking at our information that was received from a report, more than 80% of KCTCS graduates who receive SNAP benefits either re enrolled in a KCTCS program or they were able to graduate and they earned 200% above the federal poverty line after graduation. Our research shows that students with unmet basic needs are negatively impacted. Students' GPAs, health, and retention rates are impacted. However, students who access campus and public resources are more likely to succeed academically and graduate. And this is going to help our goal that has been set as a state with getting 60% of the Kentucky population to hold a post secondary degree or credential. So during our summer workshops, there were a lot of conversations and there were some insights and findings that were presented, and I've just kind of summarized them up here. We discovered significant variation in how campuses are addressing these issues, which leads to an inconsistency in support that students received. We found that many campuses use different surveys and methods to access services and to assess the needs of students, which makes it challenging to get a clear picture of student needs statewide. A key insight is that students often only seek help when they are already in crises. And many of campus partners share that information over and over again, that students are in the midst of their crises when they reach out for help. Emphasizing the need for more proactive approaches and consistent standardized screening across campuses would be truly helpful in addressing some of these issues. This will help ensure every student gets the support that they need before they reach a breaking point. We focused on food and housing insecurity primarily over the summer. We discussed food beyond the pantry, which was a great workshop. I think I see some of the folks on here that attended that and shared some ideas. Again, go to the Impact Exchange if you're interested in learning what some of our campuses are doing beyond the pantry. And then we discussed housing insecurity, and a lot of campuses and our connectors discussed the lack of resources in the community and the state as a whole for housing. And so we started learning about how to utilize and maximize the resources that we do have and that are already there. We want to look at some of the best practices for screening students, because that is one of the big things that we want to look at, that we've talked about during the summer in creating some of these screeners and guides to be able to provide to our campuses and our campus partners. We want to be able to utilize something that is going to be effective. And so in the research that was done, it has shown that these are some pretty strong best practices. Looking at the Hope Center, even Trellis, the Trellis Financial Wellness survey that was done, looking at the American Council of Education, the research that was done here in the state of Kentucky with the Hope Center as well as an initiative that was done with UC Basic Needs. And from those, we have using a standardized screening tool. And this process would ensure consistent data collection using validated surveys. Two, integrate screening into existing practices. And we could do this by embedding screenings into orientations, advising, or counseling sessions. A lot of our campus partners discussed over the summer the ability to maximize advising opportunities, whether it was an academic advisor or their financial aid counselor advisor. Number three is creating a safe and supportive environment, which speaks more to the ability to trust in the staff and faculty who is offering support, and maintaining confidentiality and encouraging honesty. Again, students will often only go to that one person that they know and trust. They'll carry these things, they'll carry this through the midst of their crises, but they will talk and share with that one person that they've built a relationship with and that they trust. And we're hoping that the more staff that is trained, number four, I'm going to number four already, the more staff that is trained and faculty that is trained on providing comprehensive support and knowing how to empathize and express cultural sensitivity when providing these resources, that this will expand the safety net, this will expand the trust and add to the supportive environment that the students feel within their campus networks. And the number five is ensure follow up and referral mechanisms. So have a clear, actionable step for referrals, and it's going to be multiple steps. And you want to make sure that it continues in the support that is provided to students. So we've got these five best practices for screening students. This certainly is not it. We've come across a lot of other information, but these are some of the highest that come to us when we're looking at what is needed and what we need and how we can use this information to improve some of the process that we have. These were some of the ones that just really stuck out. And I want for us to be able to take some time to be able to review um, this information that we've gotten from these best practices with some of the things that you're doing on your campuses. I can go to the next screen, which is our breakout, I want us to consider how these practices could be applied on your campus, any gaps you identify in your current screening process, challenges you may face in implementing these best practices. So consider, I'll go back to that screen maybe. Um, consider these best practices. Take this as an opportunity to kind of have evaluation, a self-evaluation of your office, of your campus. Are you using any of these best practices now? Have you attempted to use them? How is it going? Maybe you have a success story. Maybe you have a story of something that you truly learned from that didn't go very well, and you're learning how to fix it and do it better the next time around. Take this opportunity, and we'll have about 15 minutes. We'll break you out into small groups to discuss and share how you could implement these on your campus. Again, any gaps that you can identify in being able to implement the screening processes on your campuses and challenges you may face. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can get you all into breakout groups. And again, you all would be in a breakout groups for about 15 minutes to be able to share, have good conversations. I will probably join in on some as well. Right. We'll have everybody slowly coming back in. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Ariane, will you share the presentation in the exchange?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am going to be able to do that. I'm also working with some of our folks in IT to get the recording to upload again. They were really helpful with getting that done over the summer for our work groups. So I'm hoping that we can start having that for the COPs too.
Might snag a couple of those slides for another purpose.
Oh, certainly. Certainly. Okay, I think we've got folks. Let me get back in here to my presentation. Okay, so now that we're back here as our whole group, I want to be able to hear from everyone. If you all have, one person from every group, or if, everybody has several people from the group has something to say, that's fine too. We've got about 10 minutes to be able to review some of that. I would love to hear some of your like some key points that you heard or some takeaways from the group discussions. What did you find that might be most applicable for your campuses or the support services that you provide? What challenges were discussed being faced. I know there were a couple that were discussed in my group, as well as some things that were working well. So I'd love to be able to hear what that looks like in you all's groups. So feel free to just unmute and share. Really, no one wants to share out first? I'll share from my group. So, Zoom did a thing and it put several connectors into one group. So I was glad that I joined in and got on with them. Being able to have that experience in human service and social work and knowing exactly, how they're being able to operate and help our students, and then being able to share from the academic side. So glad that I was able to join that group with you guys. One of the things that we discussed was that there's a non-academic barrier survey that goes out on their campuses, and it captures a lot of results as it pertains to physical health, mental health, and childcare. There are a couple of questions that are on there, but they're kind of simple as it refers to housing security, but it's a lot more focused on physical health, mental health, and childcare. One of the campuses, said that it goes out whenever there's a new start to a semester. So whether it's, the abbreviated semester or whether it is the full, 16 weeks, like whenever there is a new start to a semester, that goes out. So that's really great because it means it's going out frequently to students across campus. Another campus has it consistently available to students in Blackboard. It is always available. There's a link to it, and students can get on there. But that does require occasionally that a staff or support person is reminding them, hey, don't forget to go and take that survey. Hey, do you got something going on? You might want to take that survey. So some are getting a number of surveys, and it goes up and down in the amount of surveys that they get for a lot of different reasons. And then, one of the campuses noted that they don't really get a lot of the surveys responses. Students just aren't responding. So trying to troubleshoot, is it because the students aren't reporting basic needs issues? Because if there aren't basic needs issues reported, then it won't trigger results for them. So are the students just not responding? We also were looking at how are the questions being asked? Is it being asked in a way that helps the student to understand, that, hey, maybe this is housing insecurity, one of the things that was discussed in our group was the continuum of the housing security. So actually a student who lives in a residence hall is temporarily housed. That is not a long-term solution to housing security. And so that student may say on that survey, oh, no, I'm fine. I don't have any housing insecurity issues, right? So, we were just looking at maybe some of the things that might be changed, might be looked at a little bit differently. And, if they have some different eyes to be able to go and give their feedback on, how the questions are being asked. So that is what came from our group. I think we were group 4. What about group 3?
I think that was our group.
Okay.
I didn't catch the group number. We really were talking just sharing like what we do on our campuses, and a lot of our conversation centered on the challenges of housing, and that we can, I think, do a lot when it comes to food insecurity and other concerns our students are facing. But when it comes to housing, at least at the community college level, for those that were present, that tends to be the biggest challenge that, like, I mean, we just don't have it.
Mm.
So, and then trying to find something to support our students is just extremely challenging.
Thank you for that. Any other groups discuss that as a challenge as well? Okay. Group 2.
Who was in group 2?
I think that was, yeah, it wasn't it? So we too talked about the non-academic barriers survey that's provided at KCTCS colleges. But it's, I believe forgive me, but adult ed has a similar survey, right?
No,
No.
sorry, it's an intake. That's okay. The intake and enrollment form that
That's
tracks
right.
our non-academic barriers.
Right.
But it asks similar questions to what you all were assessing on your survey.
And then Jerry, U of L does or does not?
No, at this time, I'm not aware of any screening survey other than through financial aid. The information doesn't get to those of us that are helping the students yet.
Right, so some barriers with the surveys. And we spent a lot of time talking about the surveys. And then, just some questions about the connectors and what roles connectors play, because University of Louisville just gained their connector recently over the summer.
Awesome.
We just talked about the wonderful services that the connectors can provide.
Okay.
Yes. And then we also highlighted the role of the College and Career Navigator under the Office of Adult Education, which is housed with the KCTCS colleges, and that another barrier to implementation was the referral process and how it required a collective impact, having all voices at the table, because there's not a one size fits all for the subpopulations of students that we're serving. And so it takes everyone actively involved in supporting that process and those wraparound services.
Mm-hmm.
And I think David wanted to add something. He had his hand raised.
Had to get off mute. Thank you. I'm glad you brought up the student success survey, because we didn't talk about that in our group, but I work with that weekly. And I think it's at least at our institution, we get a great amount of data from that, and we utilize that for outreach to our students. So I pull reports every Friday from that, and I'm able to provide a listing to our accessibility services coordinator so we can do outreach, so that we can ensure students, if they want to can request reasonable accommodations. I provide a list to our TRIO program of every student who self-discloses that they're a first-generation student, or their parent, no one in their family has the bachelor's degree or higher. And I've worked with our prior connector and now our new connector, providing them information as well from those students who self-disclose. So I think it's a good starting point to, no pun intended, connecting students to the various resources, just like with our pantry, being able to pull from that and remind students that they can gain access to those resources.
Thank you for sharing that. What about the last group? About our last group here.
Well, I'm gonna guess that was us. So
Go ahead, share out.
we had a wonderful discussion on our offerings, and where I'm also with KCTCS, a lot of the things are the same with the non-academic barrier survey. But we've also used Starfish, which is, if you're not familiar with Starfish, it's a reporting system that can be used by the faculty, staff, and students. And students can raise concerns if they have insecurities. And we also have a survey in there. And one of the questions within the survey is, are they receiving SNAP benefits? And unfortunately, some of the students just don't choose to give that information, which of course is their privilege. But for us, it's kind of a, well, you know, if you have family or anything, please take advantage of our food pantry. And also with Starfish, when the faculty raise concerns, academic concerns, then all of those are followed up with a more personal approach. And I do that. And I have found we've had students have been homeless. So because with the more personal approach, the more likely to respond. And also, if they're not checking those emails, I can also text them. And they're more apt to respond to a text. And we have been very fortunate to learn about a wonderful program with Goodwill for students receiving, they can receive laptops, down payments for a car, and of course, clothing for interviews and jobs. And then one more, and I'll shut up. Southeast, we offer what we call our chit chat page. It's a list of community resources for our students, and it's updated frequently. So they can go on themselves and look for resources, and they can also ask for additional help.
I really like that. I've made note of in a group, I want to say it was one of our summer workshops, where the chit chat page was shared. And I loved that idea, and especially just how students kind of engage, and they engage via, I'm just gonna say threads, timelines, scrolling through things and looking at that. And how is that kind of how that platform presents for students?
It is actually, I need to send them a, I hate sending them so many messages at the first of the year all at once. Just kind of remind them as we get closer to the holidays.
Mhm.
And that, and we've actually been working with a homeless student and trying to get her some housing and just do what we can.
Awesome. Awesome. I really like that. So thank you all for sharing that information. Um, we wanted to be able to review some of that because we wanted to get to this. I know we've got about 12 minutes left of your time, is to discuss what has been being drafted as a screening, as a framework for a screening that is going to be a proposed universal holistic screener that can be adopted to meet the needs, at all campuses. The draft aims to standardize our approach, while allowing a flexibility and addressing unique needs for all the different campuses, the areas where you are, as well as your students that you're serving. And I will be working with one of our partners. Um, they're going to be helping to further build this out. I'm in the process, so I'll kind of put that out there. I'm looking for some fellows, some part-time fellows to join in and offer some support for the basic needs work that we're doing. And so part of some of that, I'm going to be looking to get some folks on board who are very interested in building this framework out a little bit further. So I'll tell you where our minds went from all of the information that we gathered over the summer concerning the food and the housing, as well as conversations from the connectors, and then conversations from our folks who are just, faculty and staff members. Like, what are we looking at and what are our concerns? And so we discussed it in our group a little bit about the continuum, and some of the folks who did the housing security conversation with us, I think it was like end of April. You would have seen that Lily put together a really nice continuum for housing security. And if I thought about our conversation, I would have it on here, but I'll have it in the impact exchange so you can see it. And what I was really thinking, when folks were ranking the things that were needed on these screeners and surveys, it was some of the things that were mentioned even right here. Like, we know that students have these particular needs, but we don't have the resources in our area, or the resources are very limited. How do we, get this information to a student? And then we're going to ask the student. That is some of the things that, a lot of us really do not want to get into, because we're like, I ask the student, do they need assistance in this? And then I have nowhere to send them because there's not enough resource, or there's nothing available there, or so how do we navigate this? What do we do with that? And so being able to look at all of these areas on a continuum is going to really help to make the screeners more holistic and more proactive rather than reactive. And so I would like to use the housing security again as the example, because the way it is mapped out is there is, a student who is just completely unhoused. Student does not have a place to stay. They're maybe in their car, or what is even used, terminology as homelessness for certain grant purposes is in the street, right? That student has nowhere to go. And then the next up is a student who is couch surfing, a student that is staying with friend to friend, a student that may be, staying until they, right before they wear their welcome out and then they go, right? Like they just don't know where they're going to go from maybe one day or 1 week to the next. And then we have students who are at risk of being evicted. They have an eviction notice, or they're behind in their rent and they know it's only a matter of time before they receive the eviction notice. And then we have the student that lives on campus, and they're going to be on campus for as long as they are enrolled in campus in the courses, and their financial aid or their financial situation permits them to reapply, pay the housing fee, and stay on campus. Well, that is still, while it's closer to the secure, it's still not secure. That student is still considered, unstable or temporarily housed, because, as a lot of us already know, if a financial aid issue happens and that student cannot get enough funds to pay for the upcoming school year, then they're going to be trying to figure out, where do I go from here, in the spring semester, because I can't stay, I can't go. Or maybe it's that a student is living in a residence hall that's not all year round, and they have nowhere else to go. So then they're trying to figure out every extended break, where do I go? What do I do? Some students, are not aware that some campuses have year-round housing. They don't know that. They don't know what to do and how to navigate that. So there are a lot of different reasons, but a student living in a residence hall is not a solution to housing security. And that's how I navigated even for a long time. So if we're looking at that on the continuum, what we would want to do and how the survey would ask the question is, okay, you live on campus. Well, will you still be able to live in your residence hall the next semester? Do you have a financial plan? Does your financial aid cover that? If it is no, then it is, what is your plan? Do you have this? Have you applied for income-based housing? Can we get you linked up to the application for this support service for this? Because in this particular area where I am in Lexington, the housing wait list for income-based housing can be somewhere between 9 and 10 months. So if we have a student who is a first year student, they're on campus, but their financial aid is already wonky, their resources are already all over the place, we don't want to wait for them to be coming out of a residence hall and saying, I just can't afford this anymore, I can't stay here, and then trying to go through already very limited housing resources. We want to go ahead and have them provided the information for those income-based housing supports, for the housing programs in the areas and surrounding areas. And one of the things that we learned over the summer was there are some areas where it looks like there are just no resources there, and folks will say, we don't have a HUD, we don't have a HUD office here, there's no housing authority office here. Well, there is something that is called, I want to say it's the back service. I've got all these notes. There is a training that is posted on the Impact Exchange. It's lengthy, but that was the golden nugget that we took from that, because none of us knew, where there is not a housing worker in some of these counties that may be more rural, just more limited resources, there is a back service worker that works to oversee those counties. So while you may not have a physical office to walk into, there is a phone number, there is a referral, and all that can be made through Kentucky Housing to get that person to the resources. And so instead of just, saying, I've got this student, there's no resources. We're going to put them into, residence life until we figure something out. We can put them into residence life, in contact with them. We can get them signed up for residence hall, and we can contact the back service hotline, and we can get them connected with the case manager who will navigate resources in that area or get them on a wait list until that housing becomes available for them. And then they can live income-based housing or housing. There's contingent housing, and it's based all on student success. So if the student is enrolled full-time or working part-time and in school part-time, they have self-sufficiency programs and all of that. We want for the survey to be framed in that manner so that there are wraparound services that are available to support students at every stage, hopefully keeping us in the green and yellow area, preventing students from getting into the red, which would be that I'm completely unhoused, that I have been without food, I have no resources here that I'm being connected to. We want to keep them on the positive end as much as we can. And we believe that building out this screener in that manner will be able to get students that type of support as they navigate um, their college experience. And of course, like we said, we want them to be able to stop coming to us in the state of crises. We want them to be able to have information available before they get to that point. So what better way, to be able to do that is to make sure that we have is that even showing? There we go. Is that we have information readily available to our students at every stage on a continuum of support services. I wanted to pull the screen up like this so that you all could see, because I want this conversation to continue. I'm very aware and want to be very mindful and respectful of you all's time. So first, let me thank you all for coming and being here with us today. But I really want to keep the momentum going. I want to keep these conversations going. So I want to encourage everyone to actively participate in the impact exchange conversation. You can go to the link here. You can scan the QR code that is on here. I think a lot of you all are already there. So when we have an announcement, of a COP or of a new thread, you should get notification. If you don't, you can go in there and change the setting and accept to get notification to be a part of these conversations and discussions. But what we love to do is to have a working space under this COP's information. So, go in and share, questions that you think, could be developed out a little bit further on your surveys. Go in and share some things that you think are best practices that are really working well on your campuses or in your programs where you're working with your students. We want to make sure that we use all of this information, not just learn from one another in the platform, but to also strengthen what we'll be able to create as a universal screener, as a partner for us here at the collaborative and CPE. We want to be able to take what you all are sharing with us as struggles and things that are working well, and then we want to be able to share that out. So the best that we can do, pulling these pieces together and then giving you all a framework so that your folks on your campus can go in and fill that in. So however you all, would send that out, whether it's like Starfish or it's, a Google Doc, however you'd want to share that out, you'd be able to make that survey and that screener look the way you need it to address the needs for your campus and your students. We also want to make sure that staff and faculty have access to it, that they're able to learn about, what are the questions, what are the answers, how to navigate that so that they feel empowered to refer students to it and help students navigate it. So again, please, let's keep this momentum. Please go on the Impact Exchange and share your information. If there's something that you have learned, come back to it. If you have a colleague that you think would benefit greatly from participating in the conversation, please share it with them. And if someone has amazing ideas and you're like, oh, I wish that person was on here today, please share with them the link so that they can come and share their ideas in the impact exchange, because we're going to use this information. And, the more information that we have, it is really going to help us to build out and be, more effective, more innovative, and, walk away with some incredibly helpful information to be able to serve our students. So thank you all again. Per usual, I wait around just in case anyone has any questions. I'll stop sharing and I'll stop recording, but I will stay here if anyone wanted to stay behind and ask any questions.